let's take a look at our top selections for
Everybody, Mike Beer here with the second of two Grade 3 races on the Saturday card at Aqueduct. Race number 10 is the Grade 3 Long Island for fillies and mares. Going to go a mile and 3/8 on the turf. Let's take a look at this field. They got a full gate of 12 entered. One also eligible there, number 13, Lovely Lucky. She needs a scratch to get in. If she does, I personally think she's a major contender in this race. So keep an eye out for scratches and see if she does in fact get in. Morning line favorite, number 4, Muta Makina, second time in this country for trainer Christophe Clement. She made her stateside debut in the Zagora last time out at Belmont Park and emerged from that race a very unlucky loser as the favorite in that race. Just could not get a run around the turn, got shuffled back out of contention. It wound up really costing her. She re-rallied for third. She ran very, very well that day. The trouble was hard to miss. I suspect that everybody, for the most part, has seen it and realizes that she was probably best that day. And I do think that she will be favored in this race. A couple of co-second choices here at 9-2 on David Aragona's morning line. One of those is the number 1, Eliade. I can see her taking money in this race. She's certainly a horse that I feel like you want to view as a contender. Personally, I'm not Eliade's biggest fan. They dropped her into an allowance race last time at Keeneland going 1.5 miles, and she did win. She came with a nice late run in that race to close that field down. She certainly ran well there. I think she's a contender in this race. She's just not a horse that I am much of a fan of. She's going to need a trip from off the pace somewhere. And if she's going to be one of the shorter prices in this race, then I'm just going to look elsewhere. She's not a horse that I was interested in at any kind of a short price. The other 9-2 shot on the line, though, is the 11 Hungry Kitten, and that is a horse that I'm interested in. Shug McGahee just feels like he's got this filly good right now, and it feels like stretching her out in distance has really worked for her in her recent starts. She also ran that Zagora last time with Muta Makina. She wound up finishing second. I thought she ran very well that day also. She didn't have, the obvious trouble that Muta Makina did, but she didn't have an easy trip in her own right. She was pretty far back early in that race, had to make a very long run, and I just like the way that she carried it all the way to the finish. She wound up coming up short, but she ran very, very well that day. They're the 3 morning line favorites. After that, you're going to start getting prices with just about anybody that you like, I feel like. Those are really the 3 horses that I think most of the money is going to be centered on. Let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector. They have 3 horses sort of up there on the lead together at the pace call. One of those is number 3, Traipsine. I suppose that's possible. Traipsine is very lightly racing. She is stretching out for the first time here after wiring a field of allowance horses at Belmont last time. But I do think it's worth at least noting that she isn't a horse who has to be ridden that way. Yes, she wound up on the lead last time, but her prior 2 wins in her career both came from off the pace, and she ran well that day. So I think she's versatile enough. For her, the real question is whether she'll stretch out and be effective stepping up in class. But I think there is a chance that both of those things are possible for her. She's an interesting horse in this race. Number 8, With Dignity, is supposed to be up there on the lead according to Timeform US. That's possible. She just looks to me like a horse who's probably overmatched her. She's a big price on the morning line. She's a maiden on the turf. She's going to have to really, really improve to beat a field like this. And they have the number 9, Theodora B, up there. Yeah, Theodora B is supposed to be part of this pace. She's actually in pretty good form recently. Since they've decided to start using her speed in her recent races, they've been rewarded for that. 2 stakes wins recently, going long on the turf, and both of those times they just put her right on the front, and she was game through the stretch to hold on in those races. She didn't run as well in her most recent start up at Woodbine, the Grade 1 EP Taylor. But her prior 2 wins are solid. The figures suggest she's a contender. I expect her to be forward in this race. And she's a player. Not a horse that I'm going to sit here and say that I love in here, but she is definitely a horse who can win this race, to be sure. Number 7, Bow Bell, the pace projector doesn't have her, right up there close to the pace in this race, but I do believe that she probably will be. If for no other reason that it just feels like that's her best running style. She is exiting a very, very disappointing run in the Zagora last time. But she's a little bit better than that. She's a horse who doesn't win very often, but I do feel like her best running style is to be part of the pace. So maybe she'll be up there as well. We'll see how that all plays out. Just want to touch on a couple of horses at better prices before we talk about the favorites in this race. Number 6, English Affair, is shipping in from Kentucky for trainer Rusty Arnold. I just felt like she was, sort of a fringe contender in here. We'll see what kind. I feel like she's going to be an okay price. We'll see what kind of price she ultimately settles at. But I thought she was a horse I could use somewhere in this race. She was a Grade 3 winner at Churchill Downs over Yielding Ground back at the end of 2018. And after that, she only got one more start in early in 2019. And then she missed a lot of time. She was away for 13 months before she returned earlier this year. And I like the way that it feels like she's just sort of progressing, maybe racing herself back into shape. 2 starts back. She came through with a pretty big win at Ellis Park. That was over soft turf. She got a 99 buyer speed figure for that. I don't really feel like she's a 99 kind of horse, but her other races all sort of, fit in here. She's maybe just a couple of lengths behind some of the major players in here, but she's not that far off of them. She's tactical as far as running style goes. So I think she can get a good trip in this race. I think the distance is fine for her. And I just felt like she'd be an okay price in this race. So she was a horse who I wanted to use in here somewhere. Not necessarily on top for me, but maybe a horse to try to get in there underneath somewhere, especially if she drifts way up in price. Number 3, Traipsing, is a horse I definitely want to use in here. I don't know if she's good enough in this race. She is stepping up in class here for trainer Christophe Clement. Again, her most recent start, a mile and a 16th at Belmont in an allowance race, and they just put her right on the lead. And she really had the run of the race that day. She controlled the pace. A stablemate of hers, Simplicity, took a run at her off the turn. Traipsing had something left, turned her away, and held on to the finish in there. She ran really well that day with a very good trip. The thing that I like about her, though, is she's very lightly raced. She does not need the lead to be effective. Her prior 2 wins, again, came from well off the pace, and she looked good winning both of those races. So I think she's a horse who can sit and run. If she has to do that, if they wind up, being part of this pace and it's not that fast, that's fine as well. The distance is probably the big question for her, but I feel like this is a filly who's going to stretch out. So we'll see. I think if she can get this distance and work out any kind of a trip in here, I think she's a player, and I think she's going to wind up being a good price in this race. So I'm using Traipsing. But it does feel to me like 2 of those favorites that we touched on in the morning line are going to be, the 2, horses to beat in here. And those 2 horses are the 4, Muta Makina, and the 11, Hungry Kitten, Shug McGahee's fillies. They just ran against each other in the Zagora most recently at Belmont Park. This was going a mile and a half. I want to show the replay of this race. Now we're going to pick it up in the stretch. They've both already done most of the things that you wanted to note. What happened to them in that race has already happened. Hungry Kitten, who will wind up second, and Muta Makina, who will wind up third. Hungry Kitten was way far back in this. I thought maybe a little bit too far back. That's her running style. She's a closer, but a little bit too far back. She made a very long run, had to carry it a long way. You can see never stopped trying down to the wire. She's going to come up short at the end, but she ran very, very well in there to be second. Again, another good performance from her. And Muta Makina was, obviously the unlucky horse in the race. Again, I don't think anybody could have really missed it. Got forward early on in that race. Joel Rosario was riding. He was content to let somebody else have the lead and sit in behind. And ultimately, it wound up costing him. He got stuck behind Bobel around the final turn of the race. Bobel started backing up right in her face, and Muta Makina got shuffled all the way back out of contention. Finally, got a little bit of room to run late, and you saw her come with a really good finish at the end, but it was too late. She couldn't make up all the ground that she had lost. She was very unlucky not to win that race. And it's just one of those situations where when you look at her prior form over in France, where she was really holding her own in some major Group 2 races over there, it just feels like she just might be a little bit better than these horses. She deserves a chance at redemption here after that tough trip last time. I don't expect her to be much price in here, but she is the horse that I have on top. I put her over Hungry Kitten, 4, 11, 3, and 6. The number 3 is Traipsing. That's a horse I'm going to try to get in there at a price. And if she really drifts up even a little bit more off that morning line, I could see having some win money on Traipsing. We'll see if she stretches out. If she does, I think she might be able to go with these horses. I'm going with Muta Makina on top, though. In the Grade 3 Long Island, it is race number 10 at Aqueduct on Saturday, approximate post time 4:13 Eastern Time. Good luck.